Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Beis, Daf 42 of Masechta Yoma. The Daf begins kind of a continuation of the end of the Daf yesterday, discussing the wool by different things like the Paraduma and the Metzora, and also the Seir Amishtalet, like the goats on Yom Kippur. And then we start talking about the Paraduma, Machlokas Rav and Shmuel, about if Shchitas Paraduma is allowed by a non-Kohen or not. And then we have a discussion about the processes of the Paraduma that must be done during the day. So, Cheva, let us jump in. We will begin on the bottom of Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis. 3 lines from the bottom. Ki also Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Rav Yochanan said the name of Rav Yochanan Shalosh Lashonos Shamati, that there are 3 instances of red wool that I've heard about. Achas shel parah, v'achas shel sara mishtaleach, v'achas shel metzora. One of the paraduma, one of the goat that's dropped off a cliff, and one regarding a leper. Achas mishkol asar zuz, v'achas mishkol shnei sloim, v'achas mishkol shekel. One had a had a weight of 10 zuz, one of 2 sellas, and one of only a shekel. V'ein the farish, and I don't know which one was which. Also, Ravin Persha Mishmei Yonason. When Ravin came, he from Eretz Yisrael to Babel, he explained this in the name of Yonason, and he said, "Shal para mishkol asar zuz," that by the para aduma, the weight of the wool was 10 zuz, because, as Rashi points out, it needed the weight, so it would be el toch seif asapara. By the sara mishtaleach, it was 2 sellas, enough that you could divide it into 2, and v'shal mitzora mishkol shekel, by the mitzora, it just needed to be the weight of a shekel. Amar Rab Yochanan Pligi bar Reb Shimon ben Chalafta v'Rabbanan b'Para. Says Rab Yochanan, there's machlokas between Reb Shimon ben Chalafta and Rabbanan by when it comes to the paraduma. Chad Omer mishkol asar v'chad Omer mishkol shekel. One of them said that the weight of the wool of the paraduma had to be 10 zuz. Was that what it was? 10 zuz. The other one says only a shekel. V'simanich echad amamet v'echad amamet. And if you want to remember what was the machlokas between Reb Shimon ben Chalafta and the Rabbanon, well, remember we had 3 options: 10 zuz, 2 sellas, and 1 shekel. 10 zuz being the most expensive, the heaviest, and 1 shekel being the least. So echad amarbe, echad amamit, but they weren't. Nobody's opinion was 2 sellas, which is the middle opinion. Omar, right? Amarbe, of course, is a lot. Mamit is a little, so the machlokas is regarding the largest amount and the smallest amount, not regarding the middle amount. Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah midifti Ravina, says Rabbi Yirmiyah midifti to Ravina lo b'para pligi ela b'sar mishalech pligi. Actually, the machlokas between Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta and the Rabbanan is not regarding the para aduma, rather it's regarding the goat that's dropped off the cliff. V'au Yoma noch nafshe de Rabbi bar Casey, and on that day that they had the machlokas, Rabbi bar Casey passed away, v'anchuba simana, and they left the following siman, Rabbi bar Casey mechaper kisari mishtaleach. And the way that they remembered this machlokas was by remembering that, as Rashi points out, that misas tzadikim mechaperes, that the death of tzadikim atones, and therefore they make a parallel that just like Rabbi bar Casey, who was a Talmid Chacham, and that he was a tzaddik and he died, and that's a kapara. So also the Seir Amishtalech, the goat that's dropped off the cliff, it also is atones. And on the day that Rabbi bar Casey passed away was also the same day that they had the machlokas about the Seir Amishtalech, about was it 10 zuz or 1 shekel. Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yitzchak, shtei shchitos shamati, I heard about 2 different shchitos, achas shel parah v'achas shel paro. One regarding the para aduma, and one regarding the cow that the Kohen Gadol offers on Yom Kippur. Achas ksher b'zar v'achas psula b'zar. That one of them is allowed to be slaughtered by a non-Kohen, while the other is not allowed to be slaughtered by a non-Kohen, i.e. it must be slaughtered by a Kohen. And I'm not sure, says Rabbi Yitzchak, which of the 2 must be done by Azar? Is it the Sara Mishtalech or the Para Aduma. Itmar, we're going to see now Machlokes between Rav and Shmuel regarding this. Para Psula, Paro Kshera. That, where am I? What? Shchitas Paro, where am I? Did I skip? Itmar, yeah, I did skip a line. Itmar Shchitas Para Ufaro, that when it comes to the slaughtering of the Para Aduma as well as the cow on Yom Kippur, Rav Shmuel, there's Machlokas Rav and Shmuel, Chad Amar Para Psula Paro Kshera. One of them says that the slaughtering of the Para Aduma must be done by a Kohen, and if it is done by a Zar, it is Psula, but when it comes to the cow of Yom Kippur, it's kosher if it's slaughtered by a non-Kohen. B'chad Amar, the other opinion is the opposite. Paro Psula, that on Yom Kippur, if the cow of the Kohen Gadol is slaughtered by a non-Kohen, it is Psula, whereas Para Kshera, whereas if the Para Aduma was slaughtered by a non-Kohen, it would be acceptable. This time, the Rav the Amar Para Psula. So let us say that Rav is the one who says that the Para Aduma, if it is slaughtered by a Zar, it is Psula. How come? The Amar Abzer, because Abzer says Shchitas Para Bizar Psula. The Abzer says that if a Zar, if a non-Kohen slaughters a Para Aduma, it's a problem, it's Psula. V'Amar Rav Allah, and says Rav, Elazar v'chuka shaninuba, that in the context of Para Aduma, it says Elazar HaKohen, and it says chuka, i.e., it has to be done this way. So we see that by Para Aduma, that Rav is saying that by Para Aduma, it must be slaughtered by a Kohen, and if it is slaughtered by a non-Kohen, it's Psula. For Rav Maishna Para, now 1 second, according to Rav, how come Para Aduma has to be slaughtered by a Kohen? It's because the Chsev Elazar v'chuka, because it says Elazar HaKohen and chuka to say that it has to be done that way. But Paro Nami, also when it comes to the cow of Yom Kippur, Hoksiv Aharon v'chuka, it says Aharon in the context of the cow of Yom Kippur, and it says chuka, so shouldn't the cow of Yom Kippur also have to be slaughtered by a Kohen? So Shchita lav avodei. So the Gemara says, yeah, but Shchita isn't actually an avoda, and therefore it does not have to be done by a Kohen. But Iachi Paranami. But if that's the case, that Shchita is an avoda, so then say the same thing by Para Aduma and say that a non-Kohen can slaughter the Para Aduma. So shiny Para Dukachi Bedek Abayisi. The Gemara says, yeah, but the Para Aduma is unique in that it's not Kachim Mizbech, it's Kachim Bedek Abayis. It's just monetary value for the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore it can be slaughtered by the Kohen. Therefore it must be slaughtered by a Kohen. But V'lav Kol D'chenu, to which the Gemara says, wait, but what? That doesn't make any sense. Meaning, if we're saying that when it comes to Kachim Mizbeach, Shchita is not technically considered an avoda, therefore it doesn't have to be done by a Kohen, well then I would think that certainly Kachim Bedek Habayis, which isn't Kedushas Damim, which isn't Kedushas Aguf, it's just monetary value for the Beis HaMikdash, certainly it should not have to be done by a Kohen. So Rav Shisha B'Rav Idi, Mididava, Amaris Negoim, Delav Avodi, Uvaya Kahuna, so says of Shisha B'Rav Idi, well, yeah, the logic there is sound, that makes sense. However, just like when it comes to checking out tzaras, it's not an avoda, but it has to be done by a Kohen. So here also, when it comes to Para Aduma, it might not be an avoda, but it must be done by a Kohen. Fine, so we see that Rav's opinion is that Para Aduma must be slaughtered by a Kohen. If it is slaughtered by a Zar, it's pasul. However, the slaughtering of the cow of Yom Kippur can be done by a non-Kohen because it's not technically an avoda. Shmuel, the Amar Paro Psula, and according to Shmuel, therefore, whose opinion is that the cow of Yom Kippur must be slaughtered by a Kohen, and if it's slaughtered by a Zar, it's pasul. Maishna Paro, well then what's unique about the cow of Yom Kippur that it must be slaughtered by a Kohen? The pasuk says Aharon v'chuka. Well, it says Aharon a Kohen, and chuka, so it must be slaughtered by Aharon, by a Kohen. Paranami aksiv Elazar v'chuka, but by the Para Aduma, it also says Elazar, who's a Kohen, and chuka, so shouldn't I say that by the Para Aduma it would also have to be slaughtered by a Kohen? So shiny awesome disliv v'shachat also lefanav. Well, it's different when it comes to paraduma because it says that he will slaughter the paraduma before him, in front of Elazar. So who's slaughtering it in front of Elazar? She'ezar shochid v'Elazar roeh. It means that a non-Kohen is allowed to slaughter the paraduma according to Shmuel, and Rabbi Elazar observes, and Elazar Kohen observes. V'Rav, and what Rav learns out from v'shachat also lefanav, it means shelo yasiach daitu mimena, that you can't be thinking about other things. You have to be focusing on the paraduma. How does Shmuel learn out that you can't be distracted when you're slaughtering the paraduma? So Shmuel learns it out from that he will burn the paraduma in front of him to learn that you have to be focused. You can't be thinking about but to be distracted with other things. Rav chad b'shchita v'chad b'seifa, where and Rav, who learns out that v'shachat, that when it says v'shachat also lefanav, he says hesach hadas. So what does he do with the pasuk of mivzarif as a part le'enav? He says, well, both of them are teaching hesach hadas. Both the pasuk of v'shachat also lefanav and the pasuk of v'zarif as a part le'enav are teaching that he can't be distracted during the avodah of the paraduma u'tzricha, and you need to teach that you must be focused, that there can't be hesach hadas both by the shchita and by the sreifa, because the cause of achmana b'shchita, because if it was only written by shchita that you can't have hesach hadas, mishum detchilas avodah, because it's the beginning of the avodah, aval sreifa emalo, but by the burning of the paradum, which is later on, maybe if there is distraction, it's okay. Tzricha, therefore you have to teach also by the sreifa, you must be focused, you can't have hesach hadas. Because of achmana b'sreifa, and if the Torah only wrote by the burning, that you must have, that you can't have hesach hadas, well, because the burning ultimately is the important part, that you burn the paraduma. So of course you can't have hesach hadas, you have to be focused. When it comes to the slaughtering, not as important as the burning, so maybe hesach hadas isn't a problem. Tzricha, therefore, the pasuk teaches that no, according to Rab, the pasuk teaches both that v'shachat also lefanav as well v'sarv as a part le'enav, that both by the sreifa and by the shrita there cannot be hesach hadas, you can't be distracted. Okay, fine. So we say that by shrita and by sreifa you can't have hesach hadas. So then, what can you have hesach hadas by? What's excluded? So lemute asifas efra umilu mayim lekiddush. To the exclusion of gathering up the ashes and then adding water to it. If I guess you get distracted, you have hesach hadas, you're not focused. So then that would be okay. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. What? No. Whoa. I totally messed up there. Whoa. I'm sorry. So if you're going to say that, right, that it is the gathering of the ashes as well as the adding water to the ashes and mixing it so that it's ready to be sprinkled, well, the pasuk says you have to guard it for sprinkling. So certainly when it comes to gathering the ashes and adding water to it, so it's the mishmeres menida. You have to guard it. So again, what is something that you can be distracted, that doesn't have to be guarded? You don't have to be focused on it. We said shchita, right? You can't have hesach hadas. Sreifa, you can't have hesach hadas. The gathering, the milui hamayim, you can't have hesach hadas. So what can you have hesach hadas for? So lemute ashlochas eitz eretz ve'ezo v'shnitolas. It's the throwing of the cedar wood and the hyssop and the wool into the fire to lav gufa the paraninu, that it's not the those are kind of meta things, right? The cedar wood and the hyssop and the right, the cedar wood and the hyssop and the red wool that you're throwing into the fire, that's kind of more like meta things. So if you have hesach hadas, it's okay. Itmar was stated shchitas para bizarre, that when it comes to slaughtering the para aduma by a non-Kohen, Rabbi Ami Amar Kshera says, Rabbi Ami, it's okay, it's kosher. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Amar Psula, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha says it's possible. And listen to this. Ula Amar Kshera v'Ami Psula. Ula says kosher, although sometimes some people say pasul. Perfect machlokas. One opinion says kosher, one opinion says pasul, the third opinion says kosher, but maybe also pasul. Perfect. Let's go weiter. Masiv Rabbi Yeshua bar Abba. Rabbi Yeshua bar Abba asks a kasha, the siyue l'Rav, to support Rav. And here's the kasha. Ainly ela azas memea she'en ksherim be'isha kebaish, ve'en ksherim ela bayom. So when it comes to sprinkling the mechatas, the ashes of the paraduma that's been mixed with water, so it's not kosher if sprinkled by a woman, and also it must be sprinkled during the day, as the pasuk says, "V'yischatabo bayom hashlishi u'bayom hashvi," right, on the third day and the seventh day, not at night. Minan Rabbo Shchita, how do we know that also the slaughtering of the paraduma, the Kabbalah's dama, and receiving its blood, v'azaz dama, and sprinkling its blood, v'sreifasa, and burning it, v'ashachas eitz erez, v'ezo, v'shnitolas, and throwing the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the red wool, into the fire. How do we know that all these things also have to be done during the day, specifically during the day? Tamilomar Torah. Therefore it says, Torah, which is inclusive to include all of these things, that they must be done during the day as well. Is it possible that also gathering up the ashes of the paraduma and adding water to it, maybe that also has to be done during the day? It can't be done at night? Therefore it says this. No, specifically these things have to be done during the day, but Nasifas Ephra and the Milumayim can be done even at night. Well, how come we decided that these things have to be done during the day, but, the gathering of the ashes and mixing with water, that could be done at night? How do you decide what's allowed to be, what must be done during the day, what could be done also at night? So, right, we said it says Torah and it says Zos. So how do we decide what's included in Torah and what's excluded by Zos? So the Gemara says, well, since we have this riboy of Torah and this miut of Zos, Omar, so you get to thinking, and you say, well, well, let's learn it out, right? We're learning all of it out from azos me'el, right? From the sprinkling of the mechatas, that it says, by Yom HaShlishi, it has to be in the third day. Well, ma'azos me'el, einen ksherin b'isha k'b'ish, ve'enen ksherin ela b'yom. Well, sprinkling of the mechatas has to be done by a man, and has to be done during the day. Afani avi, so I'll also include shchitasa, slaughtering, v'kabbalas dama, and receiving the blood, v'azaz dama, and sprinkling of its blood, v'sreifasa, and burning it, v'ashlachas eitz erez, v'ezo v'shnitalas, and throwing the cedar wood and the hyssop and the red wool into the fire. Holding kshein be'isha k'be'ish, and kshein ela bayom. As we're going to learn out, that since they must be done by a man, so that's what I will include in things that have to also be done during the day. Umotziani, and what I will exclude from the requirement of being done during the day is asifas efra, gathering up the ashes of the paraduma. Umilur mayim v'kidush, and adding water to it. Since a woman can do those activities, so therefore I will say that those are the activities that can be done also at night. Nami bayom uvalayla. You can do it at day and at night. Okay, no, so we're waiting for it. So we said this is going to be a support for Rav. What's the kasha on Shmuel over here and the support for Rav? Well, if you're going to say, well, since the shchita is not allowed to be done by a woman, so therefore I'll say also it's not allowed to be done by a zar. So that's like Rav. But I'll just say, yeah, but that's not necessarily a good proof, because sprinkling of the blood, shepsulim be'isha, is not allowed to be done by a woman, but it can be done by a non-Kohen. So that's not necessarily a good proof to say that since shchita is not allowed to be done by a woman, it can't be done by a zar. Just because something can't be done by a woman doesn't mean it can't be done by a zar. So Abai says, Abai hainu tiyuvta. Here's the kasha. This is the question. Because isha my time. How come a woman is not allowed to do the shchita? Elazar v'lo isha. Well, because it says Elazar. So Elazar and not a woman. Zarnami Elazar v'lo zar. Also Elazar who is a Kohen and not a non-Kohen. However, we're going to stop here. It's a shtickle high up on the page, so we have a little bit of work to do tomorrow, but this then really continues on into the next daf. So I think that this is a sort of the best stopping point for now. That was daf Mem Beis of Masechta Yoma. What did we discuss? So the first part, we kind of continued our discussion from yesterday about the weights of the different kinds of wool for the Sari Mishtaleach and the Paraduma and the and by the Mitzorah. And then we got into this machlokas between Rav and Shmuel about the shchita of the parah aduma as well as the shchita of the cow of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. That Rav says that the shchita of the parah aduma cannot be done by a non-Kohen, i.e. it must be done by a Kohen, but the shchita of the cow of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur can be done by a non-Kohen. Whereas Shmuel is the opposite opinion. He says that the cow of the parah aduma can be slaughtered by a non-Kohen, but the cow of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur must be slaughtered by a Kohen. And we just kind of we had a kasha on that based on later on, but that was sort of that main machlokas there about the shchita bizarre regarding the parah aduma and the cow on Yom Kippur. I hope you enjoyed Daf Mem Beis. Have a great day. Cheers.